The DCEU as we know it has come to an end. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and welcome back to another video. So today I'm doing my final ranking of all 14 DCEU movies. From here on out, it's going to be the new James Gunn run universe known as the DCEU. Before I get into this thing, be sure to hit that like button. Comment down below your ranking of the DCEU movies. Where does The Flash place? I'm very curious to hear about that. Subscribe and hit that notification bell as I'm trying to reach my goal of 80,000 subscribers here on the channel. It will mean a lot. And I recently revamped my Patreon where I'm doing weekly videos, weekly live Q&As, and I even have a Discord server over there. I have a bunch of different tiers, so check out my Patreon link down below. Any support goes a very long way. I'm looking to grow that community, so check it out. Without further ado, let's dive right into this DCEU tier list. All right, so the tiers I have today are top 5, great, solid, meh, and bad. And again, these are the 14 DCEU movies. They're randomized. Kickstarting this list is Black Adam. You guys know how I feel about this one. I thought this was one of the most generic, run-of-the-mill superhero movies of the past decade or so. Really just an overall flop for me. I didn't enjoy this one. I found the humor a complete miss, and honestly, I hate to say this, but it felt like yet another AI-written script. This is a bad movie. In fact, I'm throwing it down there right now. I'll never watch this one again. There was a lot of promise with the Justice Society, especially Pierce Brosnan and Aldous Hodge, you know, as Dr. Fate and Hawkman. Those were really cool characters, but overall, I felt nothing watching this movie. This is pretty much a nothing movie, so it's going in bad, and you know what? It gave us false promises of Henry Cavill returning, all to be washed down the drain, so this movie goes in the bad tier, comfortably in the bad tier. Moving on, we've got The Flash. This is the newly released movie that hit theaters this past weekend, the one a lot of you want me to talk about the most, probably. The Flash is a movie riddled with issues, I'm not gonna lie to you. Yes, it's got some great moments, especially Michael Keaton's Batman. It was iconic to see him return. Like, I didn't grow up with Keaton's Batman, like Bale was my Batman growing up, but I can't deny how much of a legend this man is. So seeing him don the cowl again, it was special. We got, you know, some hints of that old score by Danny Elfman, and it felt Tim Burton Batman for a bit, which was nostalgic in a way. Again, even though it wasn't my Batman, it felt great to see this classic return to the big screen, this classic character. So I enjoyed that. I thought Supergirl should have had a bigger role because I loved what they did with her. She was just a little underdeveloped and underused, frankly. And they set up a really great time travel adventure early on in this movie, but it all got swept under the rug by a nonsensical, messy CGI final 40 minutes that really left a sour taste in my mouth. Because I was on board for a bit with this movie. I was hooked into the main adventure they had set up, and it felt high stakes. But everything got washed down the drain, unfortunately, with that messy third act. I won't get into spoilers here, but the end of this movie was literally a joke, and I just have so many issues with The Flash. It's one of those movies that when I look back on it, I actually like it less the more I think about it. That is not a good sign. I watched this movie a week or two before it hit theaters at an early screening, and I haven't really thought about it since, and if I do, it's in a negative light. This is a movie that's regressed since I first watched it, filled with issues, and it's not really landing with audiences, surprisingly. So I'm gonna put this movie in meh. It's not an outright bad movie. Again, it hooked me for about 2/3 and then really fell off and just completely ruined the overall experience for me. But I enjoyed my time for a good bit there. Keaton's Batman is a highlight, and it has memorable moments. The overall movie is just very meh, so it deserves to be in that category. Moving on, though, we've got Justice League. This is not the Snyder cut. This is the theatrical cut. The Whedon cut. Justice League, that's what I'm looking for. This is another one of those movies that tried to derail the DCEU really early on because they were trying to copy the success of the MCU. This movie came out 4 years after we got Man of Steel. Way too soon to have that team-up movie without establishing each character in their own film or project beforehand. With the MCU, we got an Iron Man movie. We got 2, actually. A Hulk movie, a Thor movie, a Captain America movie, and then an Avengers movie. Black Widow appeared in Iron Man 2. Hawkeye was set up in Thor. That's how you do it. This, on the other hand, introduced characters in the Justice League movie. We saw them briefly in like BVS, I believe, like these quick little shots of them, but they never got their own established projects, which was a problem. You're trying to introduce all these new characters and allow them to have chemistry in a movie that's only an hour 50 minutes. It was about an hour 59, I believe. The studio mandated it was under 2 hours for some reason, or right at 2 hours. That's a problem. This movie's extremely rushed. The CGI is very shoddy. I'm talking about CGI, The Flash is riddled with CGI issues, but I'll save that for my review, which you can check out linked up above. But the Justice League movie, I remember it had like this red glaze over it for the final 30 minutes, and I was like, what am I watching right now? It's a very rushed movie. I didn't really feel the chemistry, and it was unfortunate, but Superman wasn't even done right in this movie, I feel. All around, even Affleck fell off. Like, the chemistry of the team was just so off in this movie. It felt like a rushed product that DC was trying to get out so desperately to compete with Marvel. So This is a bad movie. I think that I would probably go to this one over Black Adam, though, if I'm really thinking about it, because I do like Affleck as a character, and there's fun moments. Black Adam was just horrific, I think. So I'm going to put this in front of Black Adam. Black Adam is a bad movie that has just not aged well at all for me. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on to a movie that a lot of you guys love. Man of Steel, the one that kickstarted it all for the DCEU. This is a movie that's going in the top 5, let's just be honest. It's easily one of the best from this universe. The score alone deserves it, earns it a spot in the top 5. I mean, that score by Hans Zimmer, I could listen to that any day. I'll get up on my feet and I want to run through a damn brick wall. It gets me that amped up. Might not be the best overall DCEU movie, but it's a very good movie. It's a little too long at times and drawn out in my opinion. I think it's a really unique origin story. Zod's a very solid villain. And I even love the cast all around, you know, Russell Crowe as Jor-El, Jonathan Kent played by Kevin Costner. Like, this is a stacked cast. And it was a really great origin for Superman. It's a movie I don't go back to that much, though. That's the real thing with a lot of these movies, unfortunately. I don't go back to a lot of these DCU movies. They just don't have the rewatchability for me, and that's a big thing when it comes to my overall enjoyment and likability of a movie in terms of, like, my all-time favorites. Man of Steel is not one I visit a lot, but it's got an all-time great score, some really epic action, especially in the last act, and it's a damn good Superman movie. Moving on, though, we've got The Suicide Squad. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, not the other one. We're going to talk about that mess later. This is my favorite DCU movie. Spoiler alert, I guess. It's going to the top of top 5. The reason I love this movie so much, various reasons. It's got a distinct style. James Gunn came in and he said, hey, we're taking risks in the first 10 minutes. We're going to set up this team of characters that you think is going to be the Suicide Squad, and we're going to slaughter all of them off, kill them off, right in front of your eyes. It made for a pretty great joke, honestly. And then the real team got introduced. You got John Cena as Peacemaker, who, after the Peacemaker show, his character in this film is even better. They expand upon him in that show, which actually makes me appreciate the movie even more. Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba's in this movie. Of course, Harley Quinn is played by Margot Robbie wonderfully. She just owns that role. One of the most iconic castings, I would say, in a DC film, period. And all around, there's a great chemistry with this team. It's a funny movie, but it makes characters that were just so out there and unheard of really likable. And it's a group of characters that's just so outlandish. But James Gunn does what he does best, and he makes them like this lovable family, from Ratcatcher 2 to Polka Dot Man to even King Shark. You feel for all these characters on different levels, and he makes them all just feel so human. It's hard not to connect with them. But this movie overall has a fantastic mission, some gut-wrenching moments, and one of the best shot fights I've seen in a comic book movie when Peacemaker's fighting Rick Flag and we just see the reflection in the helmet. So clean. So this is overall my favorite DCEU movie, earning it the top spot of top 5. Moving on, we've got Birds of Prey. This is a movie that apparently a lot of people don't like. I remember in past I've put this higher on my DCEU ranking and people were like, what? What are you doing? What I admire about this movie is that it doesn't follow a typical comic book movie formula template. A lot of people equate this to like a Tarantino movie because events are sort of told out of order. It's got that quick hitting dialogue. I enjoy it a lot. I've only seen it one time. Ewan McGregor as Black Mask was a standout villain. Of course, I love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. It's tough because there's not a ton of truly amazing DCEU movies. Honestly, I think I would probably still put it in the top 5. I know it's not one I rewatch that much, but really and truly, I love the dynamic of the team. It's got one of the best villains, I would say, in the DCEU with Black Mask. And it's got such a unique formula. I mean, there's some great action, but it's just a wacky movie and quirky, I might even say. I enjoy this one. I'll put it in top 5, but not above Man of Steel or The Suicide Squad, at least today. Again, I made this video before ranking the DCU movies. The reason I do these videos every time a new movie comes out is because my perspective on these films is always changing with age, with time. It just happens. So it's going to go in top 5, but probably end up being near the back of it by the time it's all said and done. Moving on, we've got Wonder Woman, another top 5er. I would say Wonder Woman right now, historically I've had it higher. I'm going to put it right here. I think Man of Steel edges it out today. In terms of my overall top 5 DCU movies. The reason being, I have thought about that third act of Wonder Woman a lot lately. It's the weakest part of the film, and almost, it doesn't ruin it, but it holds it back a lot, because the first 2 acts are fantastic. Like, I'd say the middle of the film, when we get the No Man's Land scene, and Wonder Woman's theme plays, and she comes out all badass, it's hard not to love that. I also do appreciate the relationship between Steve Trevor and Diana. It's just, how can you not buy into that? Chris Pine is this charismatic, likable guy, and it shows in his character as Steve Trevor here. So yeah, this is a great little origin for Wonder Woman. I like it a lot more than a lot of these movies because it takes place in the past. Like, much like Captain America: The First Avenger, they're similar origin movies. And I admire a lot of elements from First Avenger, even though I do think it's overall a bit generic. This movie, it stands out. The villains aren't the strongest. I cannot tell a lie. However, it's a top 5 DCEU property in my mind. I mean, the opening of Themyscira, That was just wonderful. And then, of course, the second act has some of the best action in the overall movie. Next, we got BVS, specifically talking about the Ultimate Edition here. This is a movie that I did not like at all when I first saw it in theaters, the theatrical cut, and I was so let down by it. I still have a lot of issues with it. I can't stand the third act Doomsday fight. So many issues. But at the end of the day, it does deliver on a Batman vs. Superman fight. That's what you come to the movie for. It's epic. It's badass. That's what I want. I would say the Ultimate Edition is a solid movie, though it could have been so much more. And I don't know how people can think this is one of the best comic films ever, because it is riddled with issues. I'm not a fan of Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor. It's just too clownish for me. Way too enthusiastic and giddy. It was like, you need to chill out a little bit here. It was a little too over the top, like he was trying to be the Joker so hard and it just wasn't clicking for me. However, it gives us some of the best Batfleck content in the DCEU. It's just brooding, brutal Batman, the warehouse scene, my god. And then the final fight between the two of them. There's quotable moments in this movie. If I wanted it, you'd be dead already. Tell me, do you bleed? You will. That's hype. Like, I would just watch the Batman vs. Superman fight on YouTube. The movie as a whole, it's overlong still and stuffed with all these weird side plots, but I enjoy the Batman vs. Superman conflict. That's what I come to this movie for, making it an overall solid watch. You know what's not a solid watch? Wonder Woman 1984. This movie is terrible. I remember watching it on Christmas Day on like HBO Max actually, and I was like, this movie stinks. They marketed all the action for the first hour and 10 minutes, the first literal 70 minutes of the movie. There's not an action sequence. And it's about a 2.5 hour long movie. And then it goes totally off the rails in the third act with this absolutely stupid plotline involving Pedro Pascal's character and everyone making wishes. It was ridiculous. One of the stupidest, goofiest things I've ever seen. It's a horrible movie. I'll be honest, right now, I think I would rather sit through Black Adam. And the reason is, it's a little bit shorter, and it's just not as nonsensical. Black Adam's generic as hell, but at least it kind of makes sense. The Wonder Woman plot is out of this world stupid. It might be the worst DCU movie. I mean, I can't say that because there's one that's clearly the worst, but Wonder Woman 84 is a stinker. In fact, all of these movies are just awful. That's the bad thing about the DCU. There's movies that are just awful. Next, we have Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder Cut. I know a lot of people would say this is top 5. It's not for me. I'm honestly going to have to go solid, and right now, I would probably go top of solid. I would go over BVS Ultimate Edition. Now, I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League once. It's a 4-hour movie. No one can justify that runtime to me. The final 45 to 50 minutes is post-credit scenes that went nowhere. I was hyped with the Leto Joker scene, though, and the Nightmare, like that, I would have loved to have seen that whole, like, Nightmare movie play out. We're never going to get that. However, it's an improvement over the theatrical cut, a vast improvement, I might add. I think that they get Batfleck right. The Superman portrayal in this film, not only the score, but like black suit Superman and everything, that was done to perfection. So there are great moments in this movie, but it's not a comic book film that I go back to hardly ever. I've gone to it once when it came out, the day it came out, so it's been over 2 years since I watched it. And I just don't see myself revisiting it because it's going nowhere. Yes, it's a better movie. It's the ultimate version of the Justice League film, but that story inherently didn't do much for me. Neither cut. It was just fairly underwhelming, if I'm being honest. So, I don't know. It's a solid enough watch. Wildly overhyped movie in my mind. Next, we got Aquaman. I think Aquaman is another kind of solid movie. I enjoy it more than The Flash. I really do. Like, I lean top of mad, back of solid. I think I might actually go, It's tough. I think I'll go over The Flash and mad because, again, Aquaman's a movie I've seen once, and I haven't watched it since. And to me, rewatchability with comic book films is huge because they should be rewatchable. They should be these fun films you want to go back to. Aquaman has its moments to shine. I remember it being overly long, and I couldn't believe how hit or miss the visual effects were. There's also a lot going on. You know, you've got the main plotline with the Patrick Wilson story, but then you've got Yahya Abdul-Mateen's character also coming after him. It was just a bunch of moving pieces that didn't always work the best. I would say Aquaman is better than The Flash to me. I prefer it. But it's overall mad. Even though it does have enjoyment, it's just like, it leaves that mad taste in my mouth. You know, like, it's not a terrible movie, it's just kind of mad. That's how I feel about Aquaman. It's disposable, almost, which is not what you want. Next, we have Shazam. I'll be honest, the first Shazam is so much fun. I think Zachary Levi is better in this movie than he is in the sequel. It was the first DCU movie that felt a little campier and lighthearted in a way. I would say, in terms of the DCEU, this is going to go into the back of my top 5. I think Shazam really is that enjoyable of a movie. It's not perfect by any means, it isn't, but it makes fun of a lot of the comic book tropes, which I found hilarious. Like the moment where Shazam and the villain, whose name's escaping me, Mark Strong, the actor plays him, they're like fighting, but they're like a mile away. And it's like up close on Mark Strong's face, and he's like giving this generic villain monologue, and then Shazam's like, dude, I can't hear you, man. It's like, it was funny because that made fun of something that happens in all those movies. You know, I would actually say, because I said top 5, I should have made it top 3 now that I think about it. In fact, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna say this is top 3. I'm actually gonna edit that in the middle of filming. So we're gonna go top 3. So now it's top 3. That just feels a little better. We're gonna move Birds of Prey down to great, and we're gonna move Shazam up here. I actually think I take Shazam over Birds of Prey today. So that makes more sense. That feels better. There's just not a lot of great options here, so you guys got to see me edit it live. We got our top 3, which is the Suicide Squad, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, and then we go great, solid, mad, bad. That just feels better. 5 was a lot, a push almost to try and get 5 top tier DCEU movies. They just don't exist. So Shazam is going at the top of great. It's a very fun movie, and it's the first DCEU movie that kind of abandoned this darker tone. That and Aquaman, I guess, but still. Shazam's a very fun one. It's rewatchable, lighthearted in nature, and an enjoyable watch. Then we've got 2016 Suicide Squad, which is awful. This is going in the back of bad. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I abhor this movie. I hate it with every fiber of my being. I remember walking out of the theater nauseous because of how great the marketing for this film was and how big of a stinker this one ended up being. Jared Leto's Joker was a joke. The Enchantress plotline and the villain, a joke. This whole movie is a dumpster fire. I will never watch it again. 2016 Suicide Squad is abysmal. And the James Gunn version is so much better than this that it's almost laughable how they are even remotely related. It blows my mind. This is one of the worst, if not the worst, comic book films I've ever seen. The best part about it was the credits rolling, and the song Heathens by 21 Pilots was decent enough to be like, okay, this is a pretty cool song. Other than that, whew. And then there was only one, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I'd say this is one of the more overhated DCEU movies. Is it average? Yeah, but it's fun enough. I would say it's in the back of solid right now. Like, I think I had it a little higher initially, but I've thought about it, and it is nothing new. And, you know, that's not what people want in this day and age. They want something that's going to push the boundary for a comic book film. It's still a solid watch, though. Like a 3 to 3.5. Like, I enjoyed my time with this one. I don't think it's awful. Like, it's not a bad movie. It's just fine. And that's not what people want in comic book films anymore, especially with the oversaturation we have of them. I think right now, look at this, I'd rewatch Zack Snyder's Justice League and BVS over it right now. So that's kind of why it goes in the back of solid, but it's a solid watch. I take it over anything in mad or bad, but that's going to do it for my DCEU tier list ranking, my final ranking of the DCEU movies. I guess we can run this down from 14 to 1 if we were to do this, you know, traditionally. In 14th place, or number 14 would be Suicide Squad. 13, Wonder Woman 84, 12, Black Adam, 11, Justice League, or the 2017 theatrical cut of Justice League, 10 would be The Flash, 9 would be Aquaman, 8 would be Shazam! Fury of the Gods, 7 would be Batman vs. Superman, the Ultimate Edition, 6 would be Zack Snyder's Justice League, 5 would be Birds of Prey, 4 would be Shazam, 3 would be Wonder Woman, 2 would be Man of Steel, and 1 would be The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. That's going to do it. That's a wrap for my DCEU tier list ranking. You know, let me know in the comments down below your ranking of these movies. What tiers would you put them in? What's your ranking 14 to 1 of these movies? Where's The Flash land? Let me know all that and more in the comments down below. Hit that like button, and I did revamp my Patreon recently, so if you want weekly videos, live Q&As, as well as access to my Discord server, check it out, link down below. Anything goes a long way. I'm very much excited and looking forward to building out that Patreon community, getting to know more of you over there, so check it out. Anything goes a long way. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 80,000 subscribers. I'm very close. It'd mean a lot if you guys could help me get there. That's a wrap on the DCEU. I'll be back to talk about the DCU with Blue Beetle in a few months, but until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.